Bill Belichick's one of those guys where I have a lot of feelings about. I got tired of his act, much like who's that grumpy guy down in San Antonio? Greg Popovich, Greg Pizza Faceovich. I'm not surprised that he caught his face on fire, but the fact that someone tried to put it out with a bag of nickels is disturbing to me. But I'm not here to talk about Greg Popovich's face. But I got tired of Pop after a while because all he does is whine and complain about everything. He's always in a bad mood. And I hope he gets well because I know he's been dealing with some health issues. But I get tired of grumpy old guys who make millions complaining about everything. And Bill Belichick's one of those guys where I think what you have to understand is what's going on with the hoodie. When he's talking to the media and he's having to answer questions about his football team, he doesn't want to tell anybody anything about his team, especially if it's a media member. He doesn't feel the need to share any type of information, to give any type of details. He basically wishes he didn't have to do any press conferences. And I guess in the end, I understand to a degree. I understand it to a degree. But the bottom line is a lot of players, a lot of coaches, they forget that the media actually does very good things for their football teams, their basketball teams or whatever, right? Because the more information that you share, the more stories and little hits and all these different things can be put out about your team. So you're bringing attention to your ball club. It's a good thing. Like with the Trailblazers, they're very good to me in terms of supplying me with players or information or whatever. And I'm able to turn around and deliver that to the masses so you can continue to grow your fan base, your brand, or whatever. But with Bill Belichick, what I've learned is what you see behind the podium after a game doing a press conference or during the week when he's being asked about injuries, that's not the Bill Belichick who is the normal, regular Bill Belichick. That is head coach not wanting to answer a question. So he's going to be very abrasive, somewhat bitter, and he probably gets tired of answering the same questions over and over and over again. So I get that. But what you're seeing on Monday Night Football or when he's on the McAfee show, you get this really engaging. Remember, he was on Game Day to talk about Army, Navy. He's a big fan of the academies. Then all of a sudden you see the other side where he loves the game of football. I looked it up today. I'd forgotten the exact year. He started in the NFL back in 1975. So to put that in perspective, he has been a coach and involved in football since I was born. The year I was born, Bill Belichick was breaking his way into the NFL with the Baltimore Colts. And then he had stops along the way with other teams, including the Denver Broncos, before he latched on with the New York Giants, and he was there for quite some time working with the great Bill Parcells. So he knows football. He understands the history. He loves the game. He loves to teach fundamentals, the whole shebang. And he's very engaging, and he's also very intelligent. So I respect that a great deal. So to see him enter into the game of college football is going to be great. And I actually think he's going to do a heck of a job. And I do think it will help for players. I mean, I can only put myself in the shoes of a player, right? If you want to become an NFL player and you believe you have the tools to become an NFL player, or let's say that you have some of the skills that are necessary, but maybe you're a fringe guy, why wouldn't you want to go play at North Carolina to be taught by a guy that knows the NFL better than anybody, who knows what it takes to be an NFL player, that understands all the details that go into preparing to play an NFL game? Like Bill Belichick will get those guys ready. And it's incredible. Like I heard, take a listen to him talking about the college job. This is a couple of days ago on the McAfee show before it was announced that he, in fact, would become the head coach at North Carolina. When you hear him talk about it, you're like, oh, he does have a plan, as you would expect from a guy of his magnitude. Very sharp, very engaging, and understands the game. Take a listen to the hoodie saying, if I had a job in college, this is how it would go down.
Let me put this in capital letters. If.
Yeah.
I-F. If I was in a college program, the college program would be a pipeline to the NFL for the players that had the ability to play in the NFL. It would be a professional program, training, nutrition, scheme, coaching, techniques that would transfer to the NFL. It would be an NFL program at a college level and an education that would get the players ready for their career after football, whether that was the end of their college career or at the end of their pro career. But it would be, geared toward developing the player, time management, discipline, structure, and all that. That would be life skills, regardless of whether they're in the NFL or in somewhere in business. And I feel very confident that I have the contacts in the National Football League to pave the way for those players that would have the ability to have the opportunity to compete in the National Football League. Whether they're good enough or not, I don't know, but they would be ready for it. I don't have any doubt about that. So that would be the first comment that I would make. Relative to the structure of the program, it would be an NFL program, but not at the NFL level.
All right, I'm in. Sign me up, Coach. We're talking about a guy here who's won, 333 games in the NFL, 31 playoff games, and, 6 Super Bowls. I think the guy knows what it takes to become an NFL player, and he'll be able to coach and groom these guys to get them ready. Now, there are things I've wondered about with recruiting, for instance. Is Bill Belichick going to want to go out and grind on the recruiting trail and go into people's living rooms to convince parents and kids to come play at UNC? Well, probably not, but here's the truth of the matter. He doesn't have to. I think it's Coach Prime at Colorado. He doesn't travel around the country going into a bunch of different living rooms. He's got a recruiting staff that handles the majority of those details. And then when they need to bring Prime in to have a discussion, they can do that. And the same thing would go with Coach Bill. You hire a team, the best of the best, to do your recruiting. And then when you need Bill to talk to whoever he needs to talk to close a deal, you do that. So he won't have to be traveling around at all times recruiting. And you can have success doing that. So I think we're going to see that from Bill. Also, because now with the NIL and the fact that you've got the money being pumped into these programs, he can have the right people on staff to be able to make decisions about roster construction. It's got a much more NFL feel to it, which is, I think, something Bill will be able to handle with the crew that he's able to put together. Brendan, you got a thought here, my friend?
Yeah, I'm curious just to see what the ripple effects are, Chad, because one thing that I found extraordinarily interesting throughout the process was Bill Belichick's so-called list of demands. And the one big one was, hey, my son, current Seattle Seahawks defensive coordinator, is to be the heir in line when I'm done. And I wonder if that ultimately ended up happening. Belichick has so many different connections with coaches in so many places. Who moves, who comes to join his staff, who maybe comes at a discount, Chad, and is like, yeah, I'll go work with Belichick, even though I'm the most overqualified special teams coach. So I'm just very curious to see kind of the waves that come from this, because it's unorthodox, sure, and I do think recruiting will be interesting. I don't see him coming to the recruiting landscape with the same vigor that, say, Dan Lanning does.
No, but he won't have to.
But, if he puts the right people around him, like you said, he won't have to. So I'm fascinated to see if this ultimately works out.
Yeah, you don't want Bill Belichick out traveling around the country with all the frequent flyer miles going into the living rooms. You can hire the right staff to do that. He will definitely have a bunch of NFL guys working with him at North Carolina, and that's going to be the appeal. Do you want to get a crash course on being an NFL player? You come play at North Carolina. I'm going to be pulling for Bill. I can't wait to see it, and I think he loves the college game as well, and he's done a heck of a job with this media tour he's been on, all the different shows, the McAfee show, being on the Manning cast. He's had a chance to really open up so you can see the different side of Bill. And look, I know the jokes. Yes, I know. He took the job at North Carolina so it could be closer to his girlfriend's dorm room. I know. I've seen him out there.
Oh.
I was explaining to my workout partner, Luke, the situation with Bill, because Luke was a high school football coach. And I was explaining Bill taking the job in North Carolina, which he found fascinating. He was unaware of the girlfriend. And so I said, yeah, she's a little bit younger than he is. So he looked it up and he's like, dude, that's 48 years. That's a 48-year difference. And he was trying to wrap his mind around a 48-year difference. He's like, that's like the difference between you and your grandparents. And I'm like, yeah, I know.
Well, when you put it that way, Chad, my goodness.
So I'm excited about Bill. I think he's got a chance to do a heck of a job. And, we're seeing the changing landscape in college football for sure. But Bill Belichick is very sharp, very smart, understands the game, and he's got the connections to be able to build the right staff. And the one thing I've learned about college football, yes, you need to have the right head man to lead the operation, but you also have to have the connections to build the proper staff so that you have the right people in the right places. And this is not just your assistant coaches. I'm not talking about just getting an offensive coordinator and a defensive coordinator. We're talking about hiring the right analytics staff, strength and conditioning. You've got to have all these different, pieces in place to be able to have the right, program. The other thing Bill will have to do, and I don't think you'll have an issue with this, but you've got to schmooze with the proper people, the big donors, to make sure that you continue to funnel in the money that is necessary to have NIL dollars to compete on the recruiting trail. It's all going to be critical. All right, we're going to hear from Kenny Dillingham. Yeah, there are coaches that are struggling with the new age of college football, and there are some who have settled in nicely. Kenny Dillingham would be one of those. Dave Decker going to join the show at 5:20. Talks some Blazer basketball. And then Chris Burkhart's going to join me next. We'll talk college football playoff. I want to get his take on the Ducks. He's an Oregon grad. And then we'll take a look at the Trailblazers as well. All right, Chad doing Rip City Drive here on your home of the Blazers, 620 Rip City Radio. All right, Chris Burkhart, my man, is in studio. It's great to see you, buddy. I love hearing you have conversations with your wife about dinner because the more I know about you and what I'm learning about you is that you're a freaking food genius.
I'm the house cook, and it's like not because my wife is a bad cook. She's an excellent cook. I just enjoy cooking. My dad laughs at me when he comes over because I'll have all 5 burners on the stove on, and I'm Gordon Ramsay and that stuff, and I'm not even grabbing the spatula. I'm just flipping the stuff in the air and catching it. Oh, yeah, I love sitting in the kitchen.
It's funny you mentioned that. I have a friend who lives in the area, a former NFL player. He was a good college ball player as well. He said he loves to take out a joint, get a couple of hits, relax, and then he goes into the kitchen, and he likes to take his time preparing the vegetables, the spices, the herbs. And he makes dinner an experience because he loves to cook for his family.
Oh,
and
so
so
do
he
I.
loves it. He says it's like an event for me. It's a stress relief. He goes, I enjoy every aspect of massaging every part of the meal. And he goes, I do not cut corners. I'm like, that's a beautiful thing.
It is nice when you get the whole family come over and they're all, in a coma on the couch, food stuff. And, oh, that was so good. And like, darn right it was. I've been cooking it for 8 hours.
You know, it's funny. It reminds me of growing up with like my Nana, where they gave love by preparing food and making sure you were well fed. And so you could see the satisfaction in Nana's face after she prepared a good meal and a dessert.
Oh, yeah.
And she just wanted to see the satisfaction in your face knowing you were well cared for.
Yeah. I know. My wife and girls got mad at me months back when I made dinner, and they were sitting there playing video games. My wife was like on the phone, and I'm sitting there like, dinner's ready. Dinner's ready. And then I started to get cranky because no one was coming to eat dinner. And she's like, why are you getting so cranky? I'm like, well, poured my heart and soul in that, and by the time you get here, it's going to be cold. Come eat it.
Yeah. No, my dad explained that at a very young age. He goes, hey, when mom says dinner's ready, you need to get your tail to the table.
Yep.
She worked really hard on it, and part of the satisfaction is you enjoying it. And so he explained that at a young age, like, don't waste time. Just get up there and eat dinner and make your mom happy.
Oh, yeah. That's all you got to do.
Well, we got a lot of things to talk about. First off, congratulations to your Oregon Ducks. They finish off the season unbeaten. They win the Big Ten championship, and they get the #1 seed in the tournament. And I just think it's great. If you look back to the beginning of the season with the struggles early against Idaho and Boise to where the team was at when they put the throttle in the offense to beat Penn State and now get the #1 seed in the tournament, I thought it was a great year for the players, great year for Dylan Gabriel, and a great job by Dan Lanning and his coaching staff to really coach the guys up. You can see the tangible difference from game one up until the end. It's awesome.
No, absolutely. And that's what football's about, man. And that's why I was never too upset when, they struggled in that first week against Idaho. But like, it's the first week of the season. I mean, you're building in a new quarterback. He's learning that system. There's a lot going on. Idaho's not a terrible team. And then the next week against Boise State, everyone thought the sky was falling. So it took a last-second field goal to beat them. And then, lo and behold, they end up being one of the 4 best teams, air quotes, because you know how the rankings work. But they got a first-round bye in the college football playoff. Their one loss all year long was that field goal loss to the Ducks. So, yeah, and then you bounce back. And I love what I love about this team, Chad, is for the first time in a long time as a Duck fan, I feel like the team is not one-dimensional, right? With Chip, it was the offense. You're just gonna hopefully score more points than the others, right? And I've said this many a times. This is the first year in my fandom that I can remember trusting the defense. Well, the defense laid a stinker against Penn State. So what happened? The offense picked them up, and that's what a good football team does. They know where their strengths are, and if something's not working, the other side picks them up.
You have to be able to win games in a variety of different ways.
Yep.
For whatever reason, some games turn out to be a track meet. And I have to give Penn State credit. I haven't been a fan of their attack throughout the course of the year, especially with their offense. They've struggled to get the ball in the end zone.
Mm-hmm.
But, man, they put together a great game plan. They got their 2 running backs involved. Aller had a good game, and they've got the best tight end in the country. They did a heck of a job against the Oregon defense, being able to have balance. And they moved the football throughout the game. But I never felt like the Ducks were threatened because every time they needed an answer, Gabriel was there for another big play.
Absolutely they were. And this is what Jeff Schwartz said the other day. It was like, if you look at Oregon's offense this year, the 2 times that they came up and looked the most crisp and ready and answered the call was against Penn State and Ohio State when they needed the offense to make big plays in clutch situations.
Yes, 2 good defensive teams, too.
Yeah, exactly. And that's where it pays to have a guy like Dylan Gabriel because he doesn't really fold under those situations, right? And so, yeah, the fact that the offense is, it's not scoring 70 points. Well, Chip's not here anymore, and it's not 2011. Get over that. But they're doing and moving the ball when they need to, man. It's like a boxer who doesn't get George St. Pierre, UFC, right? He wasn't winning by knockouts, but he's one of the greatest fighters of all time because he would just sit there, bide his time, hit more punches than the other guy, and then he'd win by decision because he just mutilated the other guy. But he didn't have to do a knockout to do it. Don't have to get a knockout to win these matches, Chad.
Well, look at Georgia, for example. They don't have a great offense this year. They've got injury issues at quarterback. But you look at that SEC title game against Texas. When Georgia was down offensively in the first half, what was Texas doing? They were getting locked down by the Georgia defense, and they only put up 6 points. And then in the second half, Georgia cranked up the pressure. They put yours in a bind on multiple occasions.
Right.
And then the young quarterback, Gunner, came in and did enough to get them the win. They won that game with their defense. Championship teams do that. And I feel like if you look even with the pathway, the potential pathway for what they would need to win a championship, this is the first time I can look at a Duck team and say, you know what? At least I know when they line up against Texas or Georgia or any team in the country right now, they're not going to be overmatched in the trenches. And that is where they have been overmatched every time before. But now I feel like in the trenches, they're much more sturdy on both sides of the football, which gives them a chance to truly compete for a championship. It's awesome.
No, it is, because you finally feel as a Duck fan that your team can go out there and make those stops. And I look at that game against Penn State even. First off, kind of like you said a second ago, James Franklin and his crew, they deserve a ton of credit. They drew up like the perfect game plan to beat Oregon, and they had to be at their best. And Oregon wasn't at their best, at least defensively, and they still couldn't get the job done, to tell you how good Oregon was playing. But a lot of the things on defense that broke down, like it wasn't Penn State beating them. It wasn't a route. It was miscommunications that were leading to busted coverages, right?
Yeah.
And to me, that's the easiest thing for a defense to go fix, especially with a month off. You go in and you sit there and coach goes through that film, and now you go, hey, when that happens, this is how we have to communicate. You're not getting beat because you're being out-muscled, outsized, or everyone's faster, bigger, stronger. It was just mental lapses.
Yeah, it's very impressive to see what they've been able to accomplish so far this year. Are you happy with what the committee did and how they came up with the 12 teams based on the format they were given to work with?
Well, I'll say this first and foremost. I find it hard to really poo-poo the format and be that mad, because we wanted a 12-team playoff and now we got it. And you look at this thing and it's absolutely glorious, right? I mean, Notre Dame, like Indiana's home team, playing at Indiana. I mean, like, come on.
I looked it up. Bloomington and South Bend are 3 hours apart. It's a 3-hour drive. That's awesome.
I mean, this is awesome, right? But I do think it needs some tweaks. Like, as much as I respect Ashton Genty, and he's my pick for Heisman, they shouldn't be the first-round bye team. That should have been a Georgia for winning the SEC or someone else, right?
It's funny you mentioned that. Brendan has got a Heisman vote, and he can't reveal the vote right now. But I talked to him enough to where I believe he voted for Genty. That's my feel for Brendan.
Well, I would vote for Genty as well. I like Ashton Genty a lot. But no, I just don't know if Boise State was the team that deserved one of those first-round buys. And now you look at what happens with the number one seed here. I mean, now Oregon, if things go chalk, has to face the 3 teams not named Oregon with the best chance to win the playoff.
Yeah.
So
if you go to Vegas, the 4 teams with the best odds to win the title are Oregon, Georgia, Texas, and Ohio State.
Ohio State. And so now you're looking at possibility of playing Ohio State a second time at the Rose Bowl. Then you'd have to go through and get Texas. And if everything else goes chalk how you would expect it, then you got to face Georgia. And that's just brutal for a first number one overall seed.
It's quite possible that Ohio State, their first potential matchup, will be the hardest of all the games.
Mm-hmm.
That's going to be a tough one for them, because Ohio State, on paper, from top down, has got the best talent in the country. Doesn't necessarily mean they're the best team, but in terms of overall talent, they're loaded up. That's going to be a very difficult game. Georgia would be a difficult matchup, too, because their front seven is just flat out nasty. Yeah. Texas, great defense, great offensive line, but Quinn Ewers is not striking fear into anybody.
He's been playing very, very poorly lately.
Yeah. He's not an explosive player. He's not very dynamic. My guess is they would prefer to go with Manning, but he's probably just not quite ready.
Right.
So we'll see what happens if they get into a difficult spot in the playoff game if he wants to go to Manning. My guess is with Manning, you get more athleticism and running ability, but he's just not quite as seasoned as a passer yet like yours. So they're in a tough spot. You probably stick with yours, but you're not going to win a championship with him, I don't think.
Yeah, I agree with you, because he's had some head scratchers in the last few weeks of football. So And they don't strike fear in me defensively either. Like last year's Texas team, I think was much better than this year's Texas team. And then Georgia, even Georgia, man, they have holes. Like you and I think many a time picked on Stetson Bennett, but dude, Carson Beck doesn't instill any fear in me if his arm is healthy enough to throw. Like he's made a ton of mistakes too.
I don't think he's going to be the guy. I think it's going to be the young guy Gunner. I think he'll be the quarterback to go, and he played
Best
well.
name in football.
Which that's just ridiculous, though, because the college football committee already made the precedent that if your starting quarterback is hurt and we don't know what you have, that you don't deserve to be in the playoffs.
That is
Florida
true,
State.
but I will say that Gunner looked a lot better with Georgia than FSU's backup quarterback did against Louisville last year.
Yes, no, I'll give you that. But and then that game too, and I'm never accepting another invite into this studio.
Yeah, I don't blame you.
but no, my favorite part about that game, Chad, was first off, how that quarterback didn't, get concussed and have to be pulled off the field. Like he got sandwiched like Zach Robinson and TJ Ward in the Holiday Bowl, right?
His helmet flew off
violently, right? And so you put in Beck, who comes in and his arm is just hanging. Like you can tell it's dangling. This is going to be a run. And they run it to the left side and he just slightly puts that ball in there. It took all his strength to do it. And Texas is almost like, didn't expect a run up the middle, and they untouched in overtime. Like, what are you doing? Load the box, all 11 men, make them work.
Yeah, that was. I thought the play calling from Sarkisian in overtime was poor, and I thought the scramble run by Gunner was amazing. I thought he was going to be concussed. He got smashed.
But
I think the playoff has paid off even more so than what I thought, because throughout the year, even as we got right up to the very last weekend of the season, we had multiple games with multiple teams with playoff implications. And then we went into championship weekend with 3 of the games basically being win and you're in, losing you're out. And I love that. So it turned out great. The expanded playoff, even though the format's not perfect, and they'll change it, they're not going to stick with giving automatic buys to the conference winners forever.
Right.
What you need to do, I think, is if you want to give an automatic playoff berth to a conference winner, no problem. But once you get your teams, you should seed them accordingly. Like Arizona State's had a phenomenal year, and I'm really excited about what they've been able to do with Kenny Dillingham. And same with Boise. But neither one of those teams should have a first-round bye. That's just not the way it should be. It should probably be Oregon, Georgia, Texas, and Ohio State.
Yeah.
There you have it.
So, yeah, I think what I would be okay with is winning your conference doesn't guarantee you the first-round bye. It just guarantees you a home game. Like if you're one of the team that gets a first-round bye, you're automatically a home game. And if you are a Clemson or Boise State and you're not a first-round bye or whatever, you get a home game in that first round. That's what I would do. Like there's your benefit to winning the conference. You get a home game no matter what.
But these first-round games, it's going to be sweet, like you mentioned, to see an interstate battle with Indiana and Notre Dame. That's going to be phenomenal. Tennessee rolling into Columbus for a playoff game. The on-campus games for the first round are going to be even better than what we think. I can't wait to see it.
Well, even Penn State, SMU, I think I looked this up. Like the last time SMU was the home team against the top 10 team was like 2014 against Baylor. It's like, so top 10 teams don't roll into SMU very often, right?
I think Penn State gets that as a home game, though. That's at State College.
Oh, okay. Well, either way, the point is, even though let me rephrase, even playing them at home, go through their schedule. They don't get these matchups that often. They've played at TCU a bunch of times, at Cincinnati. Like, they don't get teams like Penn State on their schedule. This is great for them.
Yeah, or to see a team like Tennessee have to travel north to face a team like Ohio State in cold weather. Most of the schools are done playing at the end of November. Now we're going to get games like late December on some of these campus sites. State College and Columbus are both going to be freezing booty.
Not only that, but, I mean, you bring up Penn State, man. It's just like a whiteout on that atmosphere, a playoff game, like Tennessee rolling into Ohio State in December. Like that's just phenomenal stuff. Like even Clemson and Texas, right? Like that's a cool game.
Yes. Now you have to admit, Ohio State, Oregon in the Rose Bowl, that's straight crack.
I love the fact that I love the fact that you would get a traditional Pac-12 Big Ten matchup in that one. I like that. And then my dream scenario though is that Kenny Dillingham upsets the world and they win that game and Oregon wins, so that Oregon's path has to go through their former offensive coordinator and close friend of Dan Lanning. And then you got to get through him to get Georgia in the championship game. His former head coach and the guy he coached. Like, I want the storylines, man.
There's a lot of ties there. You got Marcus Arroyo, who's on staff with Kenny, and then you've got Kenny, who worked for Dan Lanning. You've got Sam Levitt from Westland on the squad. Like, there's a lot of overplay there that would be a lot of fun.
Yeah, you do. Also got Jaden Fortier.
That's right.
Was it from Tualatin?
Yep.
Tight end there.
Yep. I was talking to Tracy Normoyle. Her son went to Oregon State, and I was asking her about good friends with Sam Levitt, and she said Sam comes up during the summertime. They go fishing together and stuff, but a lot of these guys, they all know each other and stuff like that. So I said, that's cool, man. I'm excited, dude. I love the playoff. I can't wait. And the great thing is, here's what's cool for a place like Arizona State. Like, their big pipeline is Texas, right? And Kenny Dillingham's been talking a lot the last couple of weeks about this whole Texas to Tempe deal, where they have a lot of players on their team from Texas. So it's a big opportunity for them in that first game to potentially play Texas. And think about what that's going to do for them recruiting-wise, to win 11 games, to be on that stage, to be able to play Texas, and all of a sudden you get all these eyeballs on you, right? Much like Oregon and what the work they've put in over the years. Their first year in the Big Ten, they go unbeaten. They win the Big Ten championship, and now all eyeballs are on them. Think about what that's going to do for them as they continue to move forward with their incredible recruiting efforts.
Oh, absolutely.
It's awesome.
You do that, but not only are you going undefeated, you're getting these wins. You're getting these wins at Michigan. You're getting these wins at Wisconsin and some of these Big 12, Big 10 hotbeds, right there in the middle, right? You can't tell me there's not a good offensive lineman in Ohio State going, yeah, I kind of want to play for Oregon. Like, it's so good to have your team in those TV sets and those eyeballs on you. It's huge.
All right, with the game of college football becoming much more professional day by day, what do you think about Bill Belichick taking over at North Carolina?
Hey, I was listening to that as I was walking in, and it's interesting because I agree with you. Like, he's not going to have to recruit. He's not going to lift a finger. He's going to hire the right people to go do that. But that clip of his you played, put yourself in a prospective athlete's shoes. Like, maybe I don't have to go out after every single 5-star and this and that, but if I'm a guy that this guy can teach me everything I need to know about being an NFL player, I already want to go play for him. I already want to go in there and experience that. And you know what? If I don't like it, I'll hit the transfer portal, but at least I can go say that I went and played with one of the greatest coaches of all time who tried to mold me into an NFL player from day one.
Yes. And then you hear Gronk talk about Belichick, just his knowledge of the game. He goes, look, he understands offense, defense, line play, special teams. There's not one aspect of the game he doesn't know inside out. He can teach every single position on the field because he's coached every single position on the field.
Right.
He's a unique. If you go to him, you know X's and O's are going to be the absolute best, and he would put you in the best position to develop as a football player. That's got to be intoxicating because most of these guys want a pathway to the pros.
No, absolutely. And and you watched it firsthand because you're a Sun Devil fan over there. But it's like, this is not Herm Edwards, who was, an average head coach.
Yes.
Coming in and preaching, oh, we're going to do it the NFL way. Well, your way really didn't work in the NFL that well either, right? No, this is a guy who I think every single coach in the world not named Nick Saban probably looks up to, right? Like, and even Coach Saban was like, oh, yeah, I could probably learn a thing or two from you. You know what you're doing. Like, I got national championships, but you got Super Bowls.
What do you got, Brendan?
I'm curious for both of you guys. The elephant in the room is still that Bill Belichick is 14 wins away from Don Shula. Is this a stepping stone back to the NFL? Or do you think that – I have a hard time believing that doesn't matter to him, but I'm curious what you guys think.
Well, I think it matters to him, but I don't think it's the end-all, be-all. Because his place in history is set. He's the best coach of all time. He doesn't need the wins record to surpass Don Shula to be known as the best ever. He's got 31 playoff wins, 6 Super Bowls, and 333 career victories. So I think he's going to be fine.
Yeah, I think he'll be fine. Absolutely.
But I do think it matters to him. But I don't think it's. I think he's fairly confident in his position. But it's going to be fun to watch. When you hear his plan, it's like he obviously has thought this through.
Yeah. The only thing I hate about all this, though, is you played that clip and you listened to him do his stuff with the Mannings and all this stuff, and it's like, okay, so you're telling me that the whole it was a good game and we really like that wasn't real? That was just you being crotchety the whole time? You could have just opened up and been a nice guy Like, come on.
I know. It's like Popovich, man. He intentionally just wants to be a curmudgeon.
Yeah, it's just like this nonsensical coach speak, grumpy at everything. Yeah.
And the reason why it bothers me is because, like, you and I work in the media. We're not trying to hammer these guys. We're trying to get information to shine a light on their club.
Absolutely.
That's what it's all about.
Yeah.
We're not there to try and, question them at every turn or criticize. It's like we just want information so we can continue to shine a light on what you're doing.
Yeah. And I know that you think the question I just asked is trivial, but you also have 6 Super Bowl trophies. I don't have one.
Yeah.
Like,
I start the questions out with the understanding that Coach, you know more about the game than I do. I understand that.
yeah.
You
Not
know?
everyone tries to be the smartest person in the
Even
room.
Popovich, after one game at Moda Center, I asked him a question, and he looked at me and he goes, "Why would you ask me that?" And then he paused and he goes, "I'm just joking." And I'm like, he
Thanks,
almost
Greg.
gave me a heart attack. It's like, come on.
I remember being in a scrum with him, and someone was like, "Yeah, talk about that fourth quarter run," and he just goes, "Talk about it." That's not even a question. Like, you just want me to talk about it? Like, I'm like, okay, I'm not asking a question now. I'm puckered over here.
All right, we'll come back. I want to get some Blazer thoughts from Burkhart. You got the Rip City Drive with Chad doing. All right, Chris Burkhart's in studio. You know, we got good news yesterday, the report on Donovan Clingan. He's day-to-day now. It looks like he might be back in the lineup for Friday's game against San Antonio. And Robert Williams not far behind as he continues to work through concussion protocol. I can't help but there's got to be a strong connection between the slippage on defense over the last couple of weeks and the fact they haven't had their size. You realize now that he hasn't been playing, Donovan Clingan, he's pretty good at clogging up the paint.
Yeah, absolutely. And the rebound numbers, I mean, it took 19 from Ayton the other night to have a good rebounding night, but without Robert Williams and Donovan Clingan, this team's just been getting smoked on the glass. And, of course, there was a little bit of a coming to verbal blows, it felt like, with Ayton and the team there. But, I mean, that game that coach subbed him out, he had like 3 rebounds. Like, you're starting center with 3 rebounds? What are we doing, dude? Get out. Play out there. So, when you're missing your big guys and one of your guys quite easily, one of your best defenders, yeah, it hurts.
Yeah, I'm excited about what Denny Avdia has been doing the last couple of weeks, settling into that bench role, but, you know, showing that he's a much more physical player than I had originally thought.
Yeah.
He's been good defensively. He's been good in pick-and-roll situations. He's starting to make his outside shots. Like, he's starting to showcase all the different talents he brings to the table. I like him a lot.
Yeah, he's been one of the better Blazers over the last month and been very consistent, too. Starting to show you that he can get you that 16, 5, and 5 just about every single night. And I think I said it with you. Like, I think if this team continues to build and truly gets to where they want to be as a competitive team, like, I don't think he needs to be in the starting lineup. And I think you can sell that to him. Like, look at the success that the Spurs had with Manu Ginobili. Like, Manu Ginobili was one of their 5 best players, very arguably could have or should have been a starter, but he fit the 6th role for them so well. It took them to a next level. And Avdia could do that too.
That game against Utah was ugly. Were you surprised to hear a coach question his team's spirit for the game and then single out DeAndre Ayton for why he didn't return after 2 minutes of play in the second half?
Not surprised that he called out their spirit, because spirit is just another word for focus, really. And he's been calling out their focus for weeks, which frustrates me because I think that's a coach issue and you need to fix that. But calling out DeAndre Ayton, by not saying very much, really, I thought it sent a good message. And it was Arshawn Hyken who asked him the question, and he's, why did you take DeAndre out after just 3 minutes in the third quarter? I didn't like his spirit.
Yeah.
And you could tell just saying that much was more than he wanted to say because he was so irritated.
Well, you saw it in the game. There were a couple of plays where he did not hustle back down the court. You could tell that he was just going through the motions out there. That's frustrating to see with someone of his talent level.
Well, there was a play where Utah gets a block and gets out in transition, and Ayton was the reason the play got busted up, and he just stands back and watches. Meanwhile, Denny Avdia sprints down the court and breaks up the fast break. Utah still scores, but there he was hustling to try to get a stop. And then DeAndre Ayton slowly comes into the picture. Like, if you're watching on TV or even our eyes live in person, you slowly see him come. And like the guy, like, no, I was here the whole time. I hustled the whole time. No, you didn't. You just came in right at the end, and it looked like you hustled. I've been that guy in pickup, too. I get it.
You know what's funny? Even the most novice basketball fan can pick up on that.
Yes.
Like, why did he not run down the floor? Like, you see it. It jumps out at you. It screams at you like, this guy's giving everything. This guy's not. You can't hide from that.
Well, it's clear, too, in that game against Utah, they didn't lose it because they were outmanned talent-wise. They lost it because Utah out-hustled them every single play. They were full throttle the whole way. And when you get guys just, sitting on their heels, you're going to blow by them, man.
I was happy with the 2 extra games that were added in with the NBA Cup schedule that we get a second look at Wemby. We get him not once but twice now at Moda Center this year. I haven't had a chance to see him up close and personal too often because he's so early in his career.
Right.
So I'm looking forward to just watching him on Friday to see what it's like.
He's nasty.
He's a special player.
He's special. He is very, very special. And so Portland was just this close. Couple numbers away from grabbing that. That would have been amazing.
You know, you and I were talking about this a while ago. It's harder, I think, for American-born sports fans here in the States to connect with foreign-born players. I don't know why that is, but it is more difficult. But Wemby is one of the most unique athletes I've ever seen in sport.
Yeah, no, he's absolutely is. He's so good, and the NBA is dominated by foreign-born players right now. And I think the NBA does a disservice to itself. I think they struggle to market them to the masses, right? They market pretty much every single star very, very well in their home markets, but they struggle to market them outside of that. And that's weird and frustrating. Like, you should be able to market Victor Wembanyama to the moon and back and still have something left over.
I agree. So really, the best players, you're right. Luka,
Giannis.
and Giannis. That's kind of
Jokic.
your three. Jokic.
Like Joel Embiid, you could argue, and you get into start going down in the. I mean, you even got guys like Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. Even I know he's Canadian, but that counts. Like, like it's all the way down. But even Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, like, we are basketball heads, so we talk about him, and we know that he's one of the best players in the league, right? But how many casual NBA fans are talking about SGA?
You're right. Like my mom, she doesn't care about the NBA, but she knew who MJ was, who Kobe was, who Larry Bird was, and
Right.
Magic. She knew those guys, and she knows Shaq.
Right. And I don't know if a lot of people could pick Giannis or Wembanyama out of a lineup. I mean, granted, it's only his second year, but the story about Scoot Henderson being in an Uber and the Uber not knowing who he was, the Uber driver not knowing he was a basketball player. Like, okay, that's weird. Like, the world should know. Right. And then the NBA does its own disservice, because like whenever you get a star in a market, they always want, they got to go to New York, or they need to be a Laker, or they need to be this. Dame was extremely popular in the city of Portland.
Extremely.
Outside of Portland, most basketball fans are like, Dame's not really that good, is he?
No.
And now Milwaukee fan is like, oh man, this Dame guy, he's pretty good. Yeah, we've been trying to tell you for like a decade.
All right, you're the man. I'm so glad you came in. It's nice to catch up with you. And now I know from eavesdropping in on your conversation with your wife, you got good plans for dinner, so you're going to go make a good meal for the family.
You darn right I am.
You're going to swing by the meat shop and pick up some free meat?
Depends if mom's there or not.
Dad is like, yeah, whatever you need, son.
Yeah, Dad's like, you're good. Mom's like, no.
Did you pay for that?
Yeah.
I love what you told me. You said your dad's like, as long as I'm running the shop, no son of mine's going to have to pay for meat.
I went in the other day, I got some meat, and then I started wrapping some hamburger, and I'm like, yeah, I'm paying off my meat, and we're good. I'm working for 10 minutes here.
That's good. Sean and Sandy, there are a lot of listeners have reached out. They like the original steer. That's where they go to get their grub on.
That is awesome. I appreciate that. We love you guys.
All right, brother. Thanks for the time, man. You'll have a game day live from Moda at 5 o'clock on Friday as we get ready for the Spurs.
Darn right. Can't wait for it.
All right, we'll keep things rolling. Dave Decker will stop by at 5:20. You got the Rip City Drive. All right, 4 o'clock, Chad here. Hope you're enjoying your Wednesday afternoon. The Trailblazers will be back in action on Friday night after 4 days off. San Antonio will be in town. Tip-off from Moda at 7. Chris Burkhart will have game day at 5. Here on your home of the Blazers, 620 Rip City Radio. I'll have Rip City Drive live from Moda starting at 3. Donovan Clingan listed day-to-day and could make a return against the Spurs after missing a couple of weeks with a sprained knee. Friday's game against San Antonio will be Scoot Henderson Glass night. If you're one of the first 7,777 fans, you will get a Scoot Henderson Glass, and tickets are still available at trailblazers.com. Bill Belichick has agreed to become the next head coach at North Carolina. Commanders receiver Noah Brown expected to miss the rest of the year with a kidney injury. Seahawks lead the NFC West at 8-5. They host the Packers Sunday night. Green Bay favored by 3. Army and Navy Saturday kickoff at noon on CBS. The Cadets are a 6.5-point favorite. All right, hope you're having a nice afternoon. Big thanks to Chris Burkhart for joining me in studio. I'm in my post-workout phase right now, so I'm trying to offset that with a bunch of caffeine. So I'm trying to find the right balance. It's very difficult, but feel good. I finally solved the back issue. I think I mentioned I was having lower back, some lumbar pain waking up each and every morning. And I was like, what in the flip is going on? Well, I just adjusted my mattress. I've got the adjustable base. So I brought myself into a more upright position, and I haven't had any issues for the last 2 weeks. And I had a great adjustment today, so the body is feeling good. I'm pumped for the college football playoff. The first game in the playoff will be on December 20th. And then we got the 4 teams with byes. We're going to see a bunch of games on New Year's Eve and New Year's Day, which is going to be terrific. What a great time of the year it is. We got the NFL going, college football, the NBA, college basketball, NHL, every single sport. We're in that rare area where we have all sports going at the same time, which equals greatness. I love it. One thing I wanted to ask you, and I don't know what your take on this is, but if you have any thoughts, you can reach out and share with me, 503-248-0620, or reach out to me on social at Chad and Rip City. I saw these numbers here, and the NBA is declining in terms of television ratings. This season, viewership for the NBA Cup is down double digits, 10% from last year's inaugural season with the NBA Cup. The tournament viewers are averaging 1.5 million on TNT and just 1.16 on ESPN. To date, the entire NBA regular season on ESPN is down 28% year over year. And the league was already coming off a disappointing season in which its playoff viewership decreased by over 12%. Now, keep in mind, they just signed a new rights deal worth $77 billion. Also, 4 of the 5 lowest-rated finals over the past 30 years have occurred in the last 4 years. 11.6 million viewers in 2024, 12.4 million viewers in 2022, and 9.91 million viewers in 2021. 7.5 or 7.45 million viewers in 2020. So my question is, and I was thinking about this for myself, and I think I told you, I go through different phases with sports. Like sometimes over the years for me, NBA's been my number one, and I'm just completely entrenched in NBA basketball. The NFL is always high up on my list because I'm a Bronco fan, but I've had years where I watch less NFL, more NBA, and vice versa. I'm really into the NFL right now because I find a number of the stories fascinating and the quarterback play to be tremendous. And, of course, Bo Nix is having a phenomenal rookie season for Denver. They may have found their QB1. And they play a big game this weekend against Indianapolis. And if they win that game at home, they're going to be in great position to make the playoffs in year one of Bo Nix with Sean Payton, who's in his second year as coach of the Broncos. So a lot of good reasons to watch the NFL right now, not to mention Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, the young quarterbacks, Caleb Williams and Jaden Daniels. There's a lot of good story lines around the league. College football right now, I am consuming more of it than I ever have in my life. And that's saying something because I've always been a college football fan. but it's my number one right now. I am so into college football. I'm into the expanded playoff. Finally, after all the years of nonsense, we finally have an expanded 12-team playoff. And we're just scratching the surface. It's going to be so awesome that it's going to leave us wanting more. And I think when we see the campus site games, we're going to be like, whoa, I have seen the top of the mountain, and it is good. Like, we're going to love it. So I'm pumped for that. But with the NBA, I was thinking about this, like, why do I have less interest in the NBA today? And for me, it's probably different than, for you or somebody else. I think there are a variety of different reasons. One, it could be, like Chris Burkhardt mentioned, that the majority of stars in the league are foreign-born players. And maybe for a lot of people in the States, it's harder to connect to foreign-born players than it is guys who grew up in the States, played college basketball here, high school basketball here, and then make their journey to the NBA. So I think that could play a part of it. I definitely know that for a segment of the population, the NBA becoming political is a turnoff. So I think some people have tuned away or are watching less NBA because of the politics. I think some of it could be the style of play with the three-point shot taking over the game. And we're seeing now teams that either shoot threes or drive to the rim hoping to get to the foul line, and that's pretty much it. And for some people who have grown up watching basketball, maybe they enjoy a more traditional brand where you have the inside-out game, where you've got a low post, you've got your center, you work off of him, he kicks it out, you move the ball around and get the best shot possible. And now we're seeing nothing but threes being launched and hoisted night after night after night. So I think that could play a part of it. But what is it for you? For me, it's very simple. Ever since I was a little boy, I've watched the NBA, and I've been very attached to superstar players. And those players are guys that I would gravitate towards, that I would, make time in my schedule to watch. I would record their games on the VHS tape when I was younger. Now I would set the DVR. There's certain players throughout the years that I would not miss their games. Larry Bird being number one, love him, my favorite NBA player of all time. Magic Johnson was high on the list. Isaiah Thomas with the Detroit Pistons. Michael Jordan. I would go out of my way to watch MJ because he was awesome. And then Kobe Bryant, who was an absolute favorite of mine, right there next to Larry Bird. I love Kobe. Not a Laker fan, but I'm a Kobe fan. So I would go out of my way to watch Kobe. I also enjoyed watching some of the traditional centers, Shaq, David Robinson, Hakeem, Patrick Ewing, and some of the phenomenal big men that have been in the league throughout the course of my life. So I had stars that I was attached to, and then later on, Dame. Big fan of Dame. I think he's a great character guy, tremendous player, love watching him play, and I would go out of my way to watch Dame. But now, with Dame no longer in Portland, and the star players that I grew up watching no longer a part of the league, and when Kobe Bryant retired, I just don't have that strong connection with a particular player like I have in the past. And so that's why I find the NBA to be less interesting for me today, because I don't have that attachment to a star player or star players that I want to watch and follow. That's what I feel. And then with the Trailblazers, I think it's very easy to understand why maybe the local ratings are down a bit. And I think that's just overall team performance. I think anytime a team goes through a transition period where you're in the lottery 3 or 4 years in a row and you're losing a bunch of games, it's going to be hard to really grab the fan attention. The diehards are going to be there no matter what. But for the ancillary fans, they're not going to waste their time watching a team that's losing, 40, 50, 60 games a year. They're just not going to do that. And I think because the team's young and they don't have any established superstars yet, they're trying to grow these guys like Scoot and Shaden. There's no real attachment there. So I think that's part of it. The way I'm watching the Blazers and having fun investing my time in that, and of course I cover the team, is I'm paying attention to the youth. Scoot Henderson, Shaden Sharp, Denny Avdia, Donovan Clingan, and I enjoy watching the games one by one to watch and see how these guys are adapting to the NBA, how they're continuing to grow, what type of things have they added to their repertoire. Are they listening to the coaches and being able to apply what they're instructed to do with their work and practice? How are they connecting with their teammates? Like, I'm enjoying watching that process, that growth process, but it's not the same as being connected to someone like Dominique Wilkins or MJ or Bird or Kobe or one of the big-time stars. Now, LeBron James, one of the greatest players of all time, I'm just not into Bron. Like, I wasn't a Bron fan, when he came into the league. He's not someone that I've, followed as closely as some of the other guys. So I think that's what it is for me. I just don't have an attachment to some of the stars. So if you got any thoughts on, why you're watching the NBA less, if you are watching it less, is it because the Blazers' lack of performance or lack of wins? Is it because you don't have an attachment to a star player? Is it the politics that's kind of pushed you away? Like, what is it for you? And why are you consuming less basketball? Because according to the numbers, the league is down. And yet the NFL and college football are skyrocketing in viewership. The NFL is a dominant force. And I really am enjoying watching Bo Nix. I can't believe that the Broncos are in a position to make the playoffs in year one of Bo Nix. I didn't really know what to expect from Bo Nix coming in as a pro quarterback. I liked him. I like Bo Nix, the person, the pedigree, the family he came from. I was a fan of his dad. And I like everything he was about, the leadership he brought to the University of Oregon, the way he connected with his teammates, the way he worked and continued to grind in practice and in the film room. Very smart, very sharp young man. Like, Bo Nix was impressive. I just didn't know if his skill set would translate to the NFL, and it has. So I'm really into his story. And with college football, I enjoy watching guys from the local area here in Oregon. And when they go off to their different colleges, I like watching them play to see how they develop. Guys like Sam Levitt, who's now at Arizona State, balling out. I like seeing some of the local guys do well, and I enjoy watching that process. Justin Herbert grew up in Oregon, played at the University of Oregon. I love watching him for the Chargers, so I've got that connection there. But I'm enjoying college football a lot. But Bo Nix has been fun to watch. So that's kind of where I'm at. I'm really into college football right now, really into the Bo Nix story, and I'm enjoying some of the young coaches, like Coach Signetti at Indiana. His story's been fabulous this year. Kenny Dillingham going back-to-back 3-win seasons to winning 11 games in a Big 12 championship is a fascinating story. I think Boise State is great. Genty has been dynamic. I haven't seen a guy in college at running back play and put up the type of numbers we've seen from him since Barry Sanders back in 1988. And that's still by far the greatest season I've ever seen in college football, the Barry Sanders year. He still holds the record for yards in a season and touchdowns, and he did it in 12 games. So no one is ever going to surpass the season that Barry had in 1988, but Ashton Genty's putting up numbers that are close. He's been fabulous. Travis Hunter, playing both sides of the football, big-time snaps per game. Travis Hunter's been phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal. He's so good that I think he could attempt, and there aren't too many guys that can do this, he could be one of those guys who has the capability to play both positions in the NFL. Now, I don't know if he will. Maybe they'll use him in spot duty once he decides what position he wants to play, whether it's corner or receiver. Maybe you could use him on both sides of the ball in spot duty. But maybe he can take on the challenge of playing, full-time on both ends. That would be hard. And the physical toll and punishment he would take would probably be too extreme, but it would be fun to watch.
Who's the last player that did that, Chad?
There's really been no one. I mean, there's been guys that have played on both sides, like Dion.
Yeah.
As a corner, and then would come in. They'd have special packages for him to play offense. Champ Bailey did that some when he was with Denver, but not full-time on both sides. I can't recall a guy in college playing both sides the way that Hunter has. It's pretty remarkable.
Oh, it's insanely remarkable. He's such an athlete, such a talent.
It's crazy. Wouldn't mind if Denver drafted him. I'd be okay with that.
Keep building your Broncos, man. I love it.
Yeah. Ashton Genty, I'd be okay with that.
Him and Pat Surtain, you'd be pretty dangerous on defense.
Have you been impressed with Genty this year and the numbers he's put up for Boise?
Yeah, I have been. I mean, not only did he do it, consistently, he did it against good competition. I think Oregon has one of the better defensive, fronts in college football. He did it against them. Did it against my team when I saw him closing out the year, and then delivered in the Mountain West Championship game. He's a baller. Now, as we said earlier in the week, Chad, I still think Cam Scatterbo was robbed.
I do. I really think he should have
I'm going to hang on to that one, too.
In place of Cam Ward. He had 2,000 yards from scrimmage. Cam Scatterbo is a bad, bad boy. All right, Dave Decker going to join us at 5:20. We'll keep things rolling here on the Rip City Drive. I got to be honest with you. Basically, anytime someone from Congress gets involved with the world of sports, my skin crawls. Whatever these losers can do to grandstand, they'll take every shot they've got. This latest is a classic. Ohio State Representative Josh Williams has introduced the Ohio Sportsmanship Act. The act would make it a felony offense to plant a flag in the center of Ohio Stadium. I mean, how much of a loser do you have to be? And how soft and pathetic is that? It's pretty simple. If you don't want someone to plant a flag in your stadium, don't let them kick your ass. Don't lose to Michigan for a fourth consecutive time. I mean, come on.
So here's the better question, Chad, is in Ohio, those Ohio taxpayers paid for this man to draft this up and present it to Ohio Congress. That is what your tax dollars are paying for. So if that makes you feel better about Michigan kicking your tail, well, more power to you, I guess.
It's absurd. It really is ridiculous. It's a very soft maneuver. I think fans are more concerned about Ryan Day losing big football games than they are whether or not someone wants to plant a flag on the field. You know, I really don't care about the flag planting. If you want to do it, do it. But don't be surprised when the home team wants to, rumble a little bit because you're doing it to disrespect them to a degree. It just doesn't bother me that much. But I'll tell you what, when any representative tries to get involved in the world of sports, they're not doing it for pure reasons. It's like, get out of here with that. That's embarrassing. It's truly embarrassing and very soft. It's pathetic. It's any word you want to choose to label that with. Come on, man, what are you doing?
And I'm pretty sure when Baker Mayfield did the same thing back in 2017, Chad, no laws were filed. We're 7 years later. So just saying, I remember that one pretty darn well.
I do too. As a Sooner fan, props to Baker. What a trendsetter he was.
Yes, sir.
All right, you know what, Belichick, real quick on this North Carolina job. There's going to be a couple of obstacles for him, and I'm going to be pulling for Belichick. I think he's got a chance to have success. One, because college football is moving more towards an NFL-type model with the transfer portal and with NIL dollars. He's going to be able to supply his staff with smart people who are going to be able to help accomplish what needs to be accomplished to have a chance to get talent to have success on the field. Also, keep in mind, this playoff is not going to stay at 12 teams for much longer. They're quickly going to move it to 14 or 16 teams, which is going to expand the number of teams who will have access. And if you're in the ACC conference where you're not going to have a lot of resistance, he's going to have a chance, if he can put the right players on the field, to get into the playoff and bring more visibility to North Carolina football. But the big problem there, and this has happened basically my entire life, Mac Brown's had a couple of successful runs at North Carolina, and they've had a few teams that were really good, top 10 type teams. They've never been able to compete for a championship. But the big issue here is that you're competing at a school where football is secondary. And it's not too often you can say that about college sports. There aren't too many places in the country where football comes in number 2 behind basketball. But North Carolina is one of those schools. So the question I have is, how does Bill get out from underneath Carolina basketball to get the interest necessary from donors, from boosters, and from the fans to where you can really start to pay attention, fill up the stadium, and support Tar Heels football? Like, that's going to be a big challenge for him. Also, I think with Bill, and it's a legitimate concern because he's, 72 years old? How is he going to be able to relate to younger players when it comes to coaching them, when it comes to their inconsistency because they're young, also when it comes to recruiting? Now, as we've already mentioned before, he's not going to travel around the country and be on the recruiting trail at all times. That's not going to happen. He'll hire a staff that will assist him in doing that. Coach Prime at Colorado does not make all the recruiting trips. Now, Bill, for certain players to close a deal, you'll bring him in to have a conversation, of course, but he's going to be very reliant upon his staff to be able to do that. The other thing I wonder, too, is when it comes to, the spring tour, how's he going to handle dealing with all the different things that come with being a head football coach in college? Talking to fans, dealing with boosters, with donors, schmoozing. I mean, maybe I'm wrong. Bill doesn't appear to be a guy that would enjoy that type of activity too much, but I'm sure he understands that if you take on that job, that part of what you have to do as a coach is sell the program, right? Like Kenny Dillingham at Arizona State. He came to the press conference after the win over BYU and said, hey, if you like these type of games, if you like these type of moments, if you want to have more, opportunities for the fans to storm the field, support your team, support the collective, contribute, buy tickets, get your season tickets now. He's encouraging and selling his program because he knows in order to be able to continue to compete and not be a flash in the pan, that you've got to have the proper support to have the funds necessary to build your roster, to get the players you need to compete. That's what it comes down to. And you've got to be able to do that. These schools that don't have a big donor or two or don't have a primary source for funding, they're up against it. It's tough because some of the bigger schools have not just one, but they've got multiple high-level donors who contribute millions and millions of dollars to their school to give them a chance to compete. So I'm thrilled to see how this is going to play out. But I think Belichick, with his smarts and his understanding, he's obviously put a lot of thought into it. He knows what he's getting himself into. I want to see him have a chance to have success. Now, I want to play this clip from Kenny Dillingham. I really appreciate the young coaches in football, in college football, who instead of complaining about the ever-changing game with NIL and the transfer portal and the challenges that come from that, instead of whining about it and complaining about the system, you just embrace it and you find ways to adapt quickly so that you can get a handle on NIL, on the transfer portal, and be able to build your program. Dan Lanning has done that at Oregon, and we're seeing it right now with Kenny Dillingham at Arizona State. And this is unique because not every school in the country is doing this, but Kenny Dillingham is allowing his players to enter the portal if they believe that's what's best for them, to get their name out there, see what other opportunities may be available, and yet at the same time, he's allowing them to remain as a part of the team if they continue to adhere to all the team policies. If they show up, they get their workouts in, they practice, they continue to do all the team functions. If you continue to participate with the expectations that they have, you can remain a part of the team and put yourself in the portal. So he's not trying to shame a player who wants to enter the portal. He's supporting them, and he's allowing them to stay and remain a part of the team if they want to be a part of this playoff run. And at the same time, he's helping them find different locations around the country that might be the right spot for them. Maybe they're not getting the playing time they need. Maybe the opportunity's not there, and they believe that going elsewhere is the right call. Maybe they've got a chance to go elsewhere and make more money. Kenny Dillingham is not shaming them. He's helping them. Take a listen to this approach here from Coach Dillingham. This is example A of a young coach who's not fighting the system, but he's embracing it. It's impressive.
For our guys that are going in the portal, we've met with most of our guys that are going in. Our guys have the opportunity to stay on our football team. Like, they're like, well, we'll go in at the end. I go, no, that's not fair to you to go in after our run is over. Like, I want you to have the best opportunity to find a spot. You can go in right now, day one, we'll help you find a spot and stay on our football team if you want to stay on our football team, and let's go on this ride together the rest of the way. But I didn't want those guys to feel like they had to wait to go in because they wanted an opportunity to have a bigger role for a program until after the CFP. I think that would have hurt their chances. So I made it very clear to the guys that you can stay on the team as long as you do what you're supposed to do, just like you're on the team. Go to meetings, show up, be 5 minutes early, check in, weigh in, go to workouts. Even if you go in the portal here, that doesn't affect me at all. That's just us being on the same page, trying to help you achieve what you want to achieve in your career. So we will have some people going in that choose to stay a part of this team, and it fires me up that we have the relationship between the kids on the team that they want that they want these guys to stay a part of it. And then we'll have some guys on the team that are like, you know what, I'm going to go and I'm going to take midweek visits, and I got to be a little bit more aggressive finding a spot, and that's fine too. And either way, it's what's best for these guys.
That's pretty impressive right there from Coach Dillingham. And if you're a parent and you hear Coach Dillingham talking about his players, even the players that may want to leave and go elsewhere, when you hear that approach and that type of support for the young men with a coach that clearly has their best interest at heart, how can you not want your kids to play for that guy? Like, that's high-level thinking there from Coach Dillingham. No, it's okay. You can get in the portal. In fact, not only will I help you find the best situation for you, but you can also remain a part of the team as long as you continue to show up and put in the work. I love that. And not only that, but this is a reason why it's important. And I learned this from different guys who played in the NFL because it's the same thing. And it goes on in basketball too. What happens is most of these players have crossed paths. They either grew up in the same area or they've competed against each other in high school. So you have a lot of these players who are connected and have friends across the country who play football elsewhere. They know each other. So what happens is if you get someone who leaves the Arizona State program because they believe it's the best thing for them, and you've got another individual who's considering transferring to Arizona State or is being recruited out of high school by Arizona State, what do you think people do? Or let me ask you a question. If you're looking at a job, a potential job with a company, and you know people that work at the company, what's the first thing you're going to do? Well, you're going to reach out to the people you know to get their take on what the company's all about. What's the manager like? What's the work environment like? What's the atmosphere like? What's the pay like? The whole shebang. And this is no different in college football. Kenny Dillingham's being very smart because he's handling it the right way. He's taking care of the kids, even the ones that want to jump in the portal. He's supporting them. He's the first person on social media to retweet an announcement that they're leaving Arizona State to let people know that, hey, not only is this a good man, very good young man, but he can help you out. He can fly, or he's tough, or he's a great teammate, whatever the case may be. He's there to support them. And then Kenny knows that by handling his business this way, when other players reach out to ask guys that he's coached, hey, what's Coach Dillingham like? What's the facilities like at Arizona State? What's the environment like? And you're going to get these players who may have left the program that will sing nothing but praises for Coach Dillingham and his staff. It's just a smart way to do things. That word of mouth is going to be powerful, and it's going to help bring more kids into the program. I wish more coaches were handling matters like Kenny Dillingham. Instead of having these coaches whine and complain about having to pay players and the fact that, they've got to retain their guys and guys can jump in the portal and go elsewhere. Instead of complaining about it, you got guys like Dillingham and Lanning who are embracing it. And Dillingham even came out the other day in an interview and said, hey, we as coaches have been leaving and going elsewhere all the time for years for better opportunity, for more money. How can I look at a guy and say you shouldn't do that when I would do the same thing? That's it. That's everything right there. I hate coaches who, like Brian Kelly at LSU, the fraud Brian Kelly, who puts on the fake accent. He comes in, acts like he's from Louisiana, talks like a buffoon, and then gets mad when players decide to go elsewhere because Michigan's offering more money. And he complains about it. But it's like, Coach, you did the same darn thing, you moron. You don't think these players don't understand that? Why did you leave Cincinnati? You had a good team there. Why'd you leave? Oh, because you had a chance to coach at Notre Dame, which is what? Better for your career, and it gives you a great opportunity to make more money. Why'd you leave Notre Dame for LSU? Oh, yeah, that's right, because it meant more money, and it was, at that time, better for your career. And you're going to turn around and get upset for a player who believes he's making the move because it's better for his career and his future? Shame on you for being a buffoon and a fraud, because I'm not buying it. Kenny Dillingham is the man. Dan Lanning, I don't hear him complaining about the situation. He embraces it and takes care of his guys. And that's really what it's all about, because what do players want? Well, one, they just want you to be genuine. They want to know that what the coach says is what they truly believe. They don't want to be lied to. They don't want nonsense. If they plan on using you a certain way, the player wants to know that, and then they want you to be consistent in the application. That's what it comes down to. People can sniff out the fraud real quick. And those type of coaches, like, get out of here. Like Dabo, like, I know Dabo's a good guy, I think, but man, there's times where he talks. I'm like, please shut up, Coach Dabo. Hey, Sweeney, please close your mouth, all right? Stop with the nonsense about players getting money and being paid, and how when that happens, it's the day that you decide to walk away from the game. You're not leaving college football where you're making $12 million a year. You're getting a king's ransom to play a kid's game or coach a kid's game, and now you're going to walk away because players are finally getting, their right to the piece of the pie. Please shut up. The other thing I would like to see is that I'm a big fan of the bowl games. I know a lot of people get tired of the bowl games, or there's too many bowl games, or we've got 40 bowl games, there's too many games, or whatever the case may be. The perfect example I'll use is, I went down for the Sun Bowl last year when it was Notre Dame and Oregon State. And all I can say is that when I was down on the field after the game and getting a chance to see some of the Notre Dame players with their family and their friends and with their teammates, and they were celebrating the end of a football season with a win, I could tell it mattered to them. Like, they enjoyed the moment, and it was a big deal to them as players, even though it wasn't the playoff. They weren't competing for a national championship, but the bowl game meant something. And so that's pretty cool to me. So what I'm hoping is that, to help these bowl games, because, one of the big issues is players who opt out. And I can't blame them. Like, if you're going to transfer to another school, why would you want to play in a bowl game and put yourself at risk of injury when you have a chance to make NIL dollars? Maybe in some cases, big NIL dollars. Why would you play in a bowl game if you're going to put yourself at risk? I get it. Or if you are looking at a bowl game, which would be the last of your college career, and you've got the NFL draft coming up after that, would you want to put yourself at risk? What I think some of these schools should do is make sure that they have some type of escalator in the NIL contracts to where you can encourage players to stay and play in the bowl games, so that the bowl games will have a little more meaning. Now, we know that Coach Prime's come out and said that both Travis Hunter and Shadur Sanders are going to play in the Alamo Bowl. Well, I'm glad he told me that, because I'm going to watch the game now. I like watching Shadur Sanders play. I like watching Travis Hunter compete. Those guys are super studs. And Shadur Sanders will be the number one player taken in the draft. He'll be the first quarterback taken for sure. But those are two of those guys in the game are top 5 picks. So maybe these schools can, up the ante by making sure there's escalators involved where it's like, hey, when you complete the season, if we have a bowl game or a playoff game, then you get X amount of dollars for the extra games. Make it incentive-based so that the players have reason to play in the game. If they know they can make a couple of $100,000 playing in a bowl game, that might change their mind, and then we'll have more high-level players competing in the bowl games. But I've been on the field. I've seen the reaction. These bowl games matter to the players, to the program, to the people who support the program. They like to be there to watch their team compete and play. That's going to be a good one, though. Alamo Bowl with BYU and Colorado, knowing that Shadur and Travis are going to play. That's an underrated bowl game now. That's pretty sweet. All right, we'll keep things rolling here. Rip City Drive. The 12 Days of Christmas with your Portland Trailblazers continues today. I have set out a goal to win a prize. I'm hoping they can just disregard the name, because I have a feeling if they saw my name, they'd be like, wait a second, doesn't he work for us? I'm trying to win a prize, and they've got a sweet setup. If you don't know about it, I'll share it with you next, and we'll walk through the entire process and find out what the prize is for today with the Trailblazers 12 Days of Christmas. That's up next on the Rip City Drive. All right, Rip City Drive. Telephone number is 503-248-0620. I'm going to the phones here in just a moment. Now, Brendan, I'm not saying this to correct you and be that guy, but I know how it happens. I get things stuck in my head in the sports world because I get it all mixed. There's just too much information flowing through my brain. Belichick's son is not with the Seahawks. He's on the Husky staff.
Yes, correct. Thank you for clarifying. And like you said, just a total brain flub, whatever you want to call it.
But check this out. The reported deal right now that's out there for Belichick going to North Carolina, 3 years and $30 million. Now, yes, is $10 million a year a decent living? Yes. But for Bill Belichick, it's a bargain. That is a bargain for North Carolina, who, by the way, went younger. They fired the 73-year-old Mac Brown to hire the 72-year-old Bill Belichick.
Love it.
So they're getting a high-level coach who's won 6 Super Bowls for just $10 million a year, and they got a year younger at coach. That's really nice. Let's go out to the phones. I was asking the question, with the Blazers, with the NBA, the ratings are down. Just, what are maybe some of the reasons why you're not watching the NBA as much today? For me, I don't have the strong attachment to star players like I did in the past with Bird, MJ, and Kobe and Dame. Let's go out to John in Gresham. John, I appreciate the call, my friend. You're on the Rip City Drive. What's on your mind?
Hey, Chad. How you doing, brother?
I'm well, buddy. Good to hear from you.
Yeah. Hey. So I really agree with what you said about all the reasons why the NBA is down in ratings. And I found myself now. I've recorded the Buck. I keep the Bucks recorded. I'm just interested to see how Dame plays. And I've kind of wondered last time I was watching the game. I was just wondering what it would be like if, for example, we traded Simons and Grant to Milwaukee for Dame, in theory, and to see how Dame would fit in with the current Blazer team. I think he would really flourish.
I still hold out hope that at some point maybe they can find a way to get him back. Dame's talked about coming back to finish out his year in Portland, but you could get Dame for less than having to give up Grant and Ant. But we'll see what happens. Let the contract run out in Milwaukee, and then maybe Dame can finish out his career in Portland. But see right there, John's a good example. He's not watching as much basketball, but he's still recording games, DVRing games with Dame because he wants to watch him play to see how he does in Milwaukee. Let's go out to the Preacher. Preacher, my man, what's up, brother?
Well, I mean, after that last call, I mean, that was gold. He said it as it is. Without a doubt, I totally agree. Lillard should come back with his current team. It would be very interesting how far we could get. But I do want to quote. I mean, I do want to say something about Belichick. I mean, he should retire at a certain point in his life, and here he is pushing in North Carolina. I'm sure his girlfriend right now is recruiting as many people as possible in North Carolina. Wherever it is, I don't even know, right? It's like, dude, you should have retired, but here he is. He's pushing it, and he has the best PR department ever. It's like, hey, don't show your ego by going into another NFL team. Here, just try this college out in nowhere, okay? And it may work for you, and he might have gotten a little bit of stardust from Deion Sanders. Wink, wink. And with Hunter, he is absolutely – I've only watched one college game throughout, literally. And it was just to see what the hype was with Deion and all this, since we all grew up in that era. And without a doubt, that guy can play both fields.
Yeah, there's no doubt, man. He's so good, and I can't wait to see what he chooses to do with the NFL. Is he going to go receiver, Preacher? Will he go corner? It would seem like receiver might be the natural choice because you can make more money. I don't know. Or just do both. Maybe he'll find a team that will want him to be engaged on both ends of the football field. I'd love to see it. All right, telephone number is 503-248-0620, 503-248-0620. All right, let's get in the mood for the season. It's time for the 12 Days of Christmas with the Portland Trailblazers. All right, my friends, the Trailblazers have got a fabulous promotion going on right now. And my goal is to try and win a prize and see if I can somehow slip my name by the gatekeepers and win one of their fabulous prizes. So far, through the first couple of days, today is day number 3 of the 12 Days of Christmas with the Trailblazers. On the first day of Christmas, the Blazers gave to me a prize pack with a Donovan Clingan glass. On the second day of Christmas, the Blazers gave to me a 60-inch television set. Now let's find out what they've got for the third day of Christmas. So what you do is you go to trailblazers.com/12 days. And as soon as you go there, you'll see a plaid screen pop up, very Trailblazer-like, that says 12 days of Rip City. 12 days, 12 prizes, 12 chances to win. Each day brings a new prize, so be sure to enter daily for your chance to win Blazers swag, premium tickets, and even a round-trip flight. That's what I would prefer to win. I like free airfare. So all you have to do is click on the number 3. It says enter now, so click on that. Day 3 of the 12 days of Rip City. And then you do that, and it says today's giveaway. Enter for your chance to win an Alaska Sky Lounge, up to 15 tickets for the game. Tuesday, March 18th against the Washington Wizards. The view is magical. Now, Brendan, have you been in the Alaska Sky Lounge yet? Oh, he's on the phone right now. He's talking to Sean and Sandy. But he has not been in the Alaska Sky Lounge. So all you have to do is put in your name, first and last, your email address, and then click on the I agree with the official rules and hit submit. And boom, now you're set. So I've done all 3 days so far, 1, 2, and 3. And so far the prizing has been fabulous. First day was a prize pack including the Donovan Clingan glass. Second day was a 60-inch television set. And on the third day, the Blazers are offering up an Alaska Sky Lounge in March for up to 15 tickets. That'd be a great prize pack because you could go to a game and hang out with friends and family. You could invite whoever you want. You could even invite Bill Belichick and his girlfriend. They might want to go because it would be off season. Now, Brendan, you've entered to win.
Just entered for today. I was bad. I missed
the first 2 days?
No, I missed yesterday.
Oh.
Monday was with you here. So I see not being here with you yesterday, I forgot, but I'm going to be on it, Chad. And I entered for tonight. And man, I mean, me and my buddies, and maybe even some extended buddies going to hang out at the Alaska Suite Lounge at Moda. This is pretty great to me.
I'm in 100%. And there you have it, the 12 days of Rip City. So each and every day over the next 12 days. Tomorrow will be day number 4. Just go to trailblazers.com/12 days, and you can enter to win. And you can enter to win for every day, at least up until you win a prize. Once you're a winner, then you cannot win on the other days. But so far, I have not been selected.
So you can't get 12 victories, Chad.
No, but I'm going to try. I think just remembering to, for me and my brain, the way it works now, just remembering to enter each and every day is a win. So I love this promotion.
It's true.
Also, keep in mind Friday, the Trailblazers will have glass number 2 in their commemorative glass set. Glass 1 was Donovan Clingan. Glass number 2, Scoot Henderson. That's going to be on Friday night. Glass 3 will be Shaden, but Friday night, Scoot. Tickets are still available. Go to trailblazers.com/tickets to get tickets. If you're one of the first 7,777 fans, you will get a Scoot Henderson glass. And these are like the Dairy Queen glasses, but even better. They're built to last. Love them. All right, if you're on hold, stay there. I'll get to your phone calls next, and then we'll talk hoop with Dave Decker coming up next. All right, from the world of college football, Bill Belichick has agreed to be the next head coach at North Carolina, taking over from Mac Brown. The reported deal, 3 years and $30 million. Also, Michael Lombardi has agreed to join him on his staff at NC and be the football general manager. The Trailblazers are going to be back in action on Friday night. The San Antonio Spurs are in town. It's Scoot Henderson Glass Night. The first 7,777 fans will get a Scoot Henderson commemorative glass. Tickets are still available. Just go to trailblazers.com. We're going to have Rip City Drive live from Moda on Friday. Chris Burkhardt will have game day starting at 5 here in your home of the Blazers, 620 Rip City Radio. The Seahawks are in action this weekend at 8-5. Sunday night football against the Packers. Green Bay favored by 3. Army and Navy Saturday kickoff at noon on CBS. The Cadets are a 6.5-point favorite. I'm telling you, 3 years and $30 million is a bargain for Bill Belichick, who will be the new head coach at North Carolina. And their schedule next year is not overly difficult. And with playoff expansion coming in the very near future, they're going to have a chance to get to the playoff, which is pretty incredible. So let's just pull up the schedule. Let's see what he's dealing with next year at North Carolina. Their opening game will be August 30th against TCU. They're at Charlotte. They take on Richmond, at UCF, at Cal, at NC State, Clemson, Duke, Stanford, Virginia. They're at Syracuse, at Wake Forest. So there you go. That's going to be fun to watch. I didn't have a reason to watch North Carolina football before, but I do now. And I want to see how it all plays out. Let's go out to the phones. Sean and Sandy is out there, wants to chat some sports. Sean, welcome to the show, my friend. What's on your mind?
I'm loving this, Chad, this Bill Belichick. So I'm supposed to believe that at 73 years old, he's going to be a first-time college football coach who's never had a winning record as a head coach without Tom Brady. I'm just like sitting here scratching my head. I'm like, is he having a late-life crisis or something? This is going to be a late-life disaster.
Well, he did
what happened?
He won 11 games with Matt Castle at quarterback when Brady got hurt in the first game of the year. So he has had a winning coach without Brady at quarterback.
So one season there?
Well, he also made the playoffs.
Like, what happened?
He also made the playoffs as Browns head coach as well. I'm just saying. He did. He played the Patriots in the playoffs as Browns head coach.
Okay, I don't remember that. I just remember him what I remember is Tom Brady left New England and won a Super Bowl, and he left New England in a disaster. And then nobody hired him at this age and invest any money in him with him just being the way he is, old codgety old Bill. And I'm not buying into it. I'm really not, but I'm being real entertained by it. I really am. But I'll look at 3 losses right now. You said TCU, Stanford, and Clemson, right? He's losing those 3 games right there.
Well, okay, but what is your big issue with Bill Belichick wanting to try and see if he can get it done in the college game?
I just don't like him. He's just not a class act. He's full of scandals. He has just a history, and I just don't look at him as any kind of decent coach. Or he comes from that whole franchise, that Bob Kraft franchise. Just nobody to look up to at all. And I'll tell you what, another thing was, if Russell Wilson wouldn't have thrown that interception, he'd have just as many Super Bowl losses as he does wins. And he went there, took an undefeated team, and blew it. Don Shula didn't blow an undefeated season, brother.
I know,
Have a great night.
I know, but if my aunt had gonads, she'd be my uncle, Sean. Look, I understand Bill Belichick is a cheater, and he lied about that. He did. He filmed teams. He did it in Cincinnati. He's filmed teams before Super Bowls. Like, we know what he's done because he's addicted to winning. Yes, he's had a couple of scandals. Deflategate, they burned the tapes, all the deal, yes. But he's also won more Super Bowls than any other coach in history. Look, I'm not saying Bill Belichick is the nicest guy on the planet. I'm not saying that. But he is, without question, the most successful coach in NFL history. So you can't take that away from him. And he has had winning seasons without Tom Brady. It's true. So you can't come on and say he hasn't had a winning season without Tom Brady because it's not true. He has. Now, how's he going to do in college? I don't know. But he's going to hire the best possible staff around him. And he obviously knows what he's getting himself into. So I expect him to be successful. I really do. Because he's got the emotional intelligence and the smarts to be able to get the job done. So I have very little doubt that he's going to be able to get it done. What do you got, Brendan?
One thing, this Belichick discussion is just fascinating, Chad. And as you were talking about it there and on the phone, it brought me up to one of what I would consider to be one of the more underrated 30 for 30s, the two Bills with Bill Parcells and Bill Belichick. And when you just realize how cerebral Bill Belichick is for the game, I think that alone is going to give him a chance, to succeed and do well because, like what you guys were saying before, his, acumen for being able to tell these kids, hey, I know how to get you the pros and, the credibility to do it. I think if he can figure out his assistants to handle all the other stuff that you wouldn't expect a 72-year-old to be able to, understand everything between the, mind of an 18 to 22-year-old. I think this is intriguing, and I mean, what's the reason for why would you be anti for it? I'm just a sports fan. I'm curious to see how it ends up.
Yeah, Sean and Sandy very bitter about Bill Belichick. All right, so seasons, he went 11-5 in 1994 as Browns head coach and went to the playoffs. He won a playoff game and lost to Pittsburgh in the AFC divisional playoff game, beat the Patriots in the wild card. And in 2008, as head coach of the Patriots, he went 11-5 with Matt Castle at quarterback. That was the year where Brady got hurt in his first game of the season. I think it was against Kansas City, and he finished out there 11-5 with Castle at quarterback. And then, of course, don't forget about 2021 when they went 10-7 with Mac Jones at quarterback and made the playoffs. So he's had 3 winning seasons, 2 of those which were playoff seasons without Tom Brady at quarterback. Now, is he a better coach with Brady at quarterback? Yes. Will I always give more credit to the player, the quarterback, than I would the coach? Yes. Yes, I would. Most great coaches have had great quarterbacks to lead their teams. Don Shula had Bob Greasy, and he had Dan Marino. Mike Shanahan had John Elway. Bill Walsh had Joe Montana. Andy Reid has Patrick Mahomes. I mean, it's hard to win in the NFL without a great quarterback. That's why I've always kind of given the nod to Bill Parcells, because he won 2 Super Bowls with Phil Simms and Jeff Hostetler.
Bingo.
And Parcells is the guy who found and groomed and developed Bill Belichick.
Arguably, everyone's got an opinion on which, Super Bowls, but his last Super Bowl win with the New England Patriots, Chad, was an 11-5 Patriots team, a Patriots team that was not, world beaters throughout the year, and they played a Rams team that was the hottest team in football with Sean McVay the first time he went to the Super Bowl.
And they won an AFC title that year in Kansas City against Patrick Mahomes.
Mm-hmm. So, again, yes, Brady went out and won a Super Bowl. I'm the biggest Tom Brady stan there is. I love this guy. But to deny, again, go see what he did with the Giants. Chad just educated everyone what he did with the Browns. This is a certified winner. Did it not end great in New England? Sure, but I think there were a lot of reasons for that.
Well, most dynasties end messy. Yeah, I just think Belichick will be successful. I mean, Tom Brady's successful. Bill Belichick is successful. I mean, you can't take away what Belichick's done on the field. You can't. You can't. And the fact that basically every other great head coach had great players around him. And you got to have a great quarterback to be able to win. And it's the bottom line. Andy Reid was a successful coach, but he wasn't winning Super Bowls until he got Patrick Mahomes. Before he had Donovan McNabb and then Alex Smith. But once he got Patrick Mahomes, he figured it out real quick. So I'm fascinated by the whole thing. And it'll be fun to watch Belichick. But I'm telling you, with the way that the college games become a lot more professional in the model, that's going to give him a much greater chance to succeed. And we'll see how things work out. But my only concern would be is that at 72, like how many years is he going to be able to put in? Maybe he'll set up the foundation, lay the foundation, get things going in the right direction, and then they can turn it over to his son, who will almost certainly leave Washington to become the defensive coordinator with the Tar Heels. And the other cool part is for Belichick is that he's going to the ACC, not the Big Ten or the SEC. So the pathway is not the same. It's not like, look, SMU's in the playoff, for crying out loud. If SMU can get in, then Belichick, if he gets the right players, he can find a way to get into the playoff potentially. And that'd be fun, wouldn't it? But I think the biggest draw for Belichick would be what he's talked about, putting together an NFL-type system that can teach, develop, and train players to get to that next level. And Belichick clearly knows and has an understanding of what it takes to get to that next level. Clearly. And we'll see. But I love it, man. I love schools who think outside the box. Instead of just going back to the typical, retreads or the recycled coaches or whatever the case may be, like North Carolina's taking a chance here. What they're doing is they're trying to bring attention and revive their football program. And one good way to do that is to hire the most successful coach of all time, Bill Belichick. That's going to drum up interest. People are going to pay attention now. North Carolina football is going to get much more attention than you could possibly imagine. It's very similar. It's going to be a similar effect to what Coach Prime got at Colorado. Colorado was the worst program in Division I football when Prime took over, but he came in instantly with his star power, and all of a sudden they became a media darling. And look at the ratings in their football games on TV. People watch. They tune in because of Coach Prime. And now I will watch North Carolina football. I had no interest before today to watch North Carolina football, but I do now because I want to see how they operate with Bill Belichick as head coach. I want to see how he deals with young players. I want to see how he does when it comes to recruiting and closing the deal. I want to see how they set up their entire structure to be able to go into the portal and find players. How do they deal with players that want to leave? How does he work when it comes to discipline? How does he handle kids when they get distracted and they aren't locked in and focused? It's different than a pro. When you're dealing with pros and they're getting paid big time money, you expect them to show up and be ready to go. But with college athletes, it's a little bit of a different game. The one thing I like that Kenny Dillingham has done is he created, I think they call it the Pat Tillman Leadership Council. So they have a group of players on the team who are part of the leadership council that work with the coaching staff, particularly the head coach, and they coordinate together to make sure that they're all on the same page. And then you get total buy-in from everyone on board, which is cool. All right, we'll come back. Dave Deckard, BlazersEdge.com, will join us. Love talking with Blazer Dave. We'll get his take on the point guard play. Want to get his take on potential changes that could come up at the deadline. We'll hit on all of that with Dave Deckard next. All right, it's time to talk a little basketball with my good friend, the man behind BlazersEdge.com. It's Dave Deckard. Dave Deckard, my friend, Merry Christmas to you. It's always great to talk basketball with you, buddy.
And also to you and all the listeners, it is always a good time when the Blazers are playing. Well, almost always.
All right, a lot of things I want to talk with you about. You know, one thing that's nice is that we're getting word that Donovan Clingan is ramping up his return. He could play Friday against San Antonio. He's been one of the bright spots for me this year, Dave. What are your thoughts on the way he's played so far, the way he's developed, and what have you seen from him?
Isn't that fun? I mean, it's great when a rookie pans out, and I think part of the secret to Donovan is keeping him in his wheelhouse, which both the coaching staff and his teammates have done. He gets to play down low mostly if he's going out to the side of the court, so he's covering the three-point arc down near the baseline where he can recover pretty well, doesn't have to go through as much traffic. He's not being drawn out to the top of the court as much anymore, so he's not looking anywhere near as vulnerable as we feared he might. And also his offense coming off of offensive rebounds and short shots, it's exactly what he's geared for. So he's looking really, really good because he's doing only the things that he does well. And credit to the team defense for keeping him down there. Credit to him for being so excellent when he gets to tee up against an opposing player. He has great defensive instincts. He moves his body well. He has good arm and hand control most of the time, and ends up with a lot of blocked shots and a lot more that are bothered. And what more can you ask for?
Yeah, no doubt. I agree with you. And, you know, David, it really appears that his teammates appreciate the work that he's put in so far with his performance. But I can't help but wonder, and I don't know how much teams put into this, but coming out of UConn and playing for that program, which was, you know, the best in the country and being coached hard, you can tell that he was almost NBA ready. I wonder how much teams put into the culture from where the player's coming from and how that might contribute to how they'll be as an NBA player.
I'm sure it matters, but my guess is it's hard to gauge, especially nowadays with the one-and-done NCAA atmosphere. There are programs and there are programs. I mean, there are programs that churn out NBA-ready players because of the discipline, because of the system. There are programs that churn out NBA-ready players because they recruit really highly and roll out the ball for a year and let them showcase their individual abilities, and then those players are less ready when they get to the next level. So I think whatever it is that's inside Donovan Clingan matters a lot. His discipline, his willingness to work and to listen. And also, obviously, Connecticut had something to do with that. And whatever it is, the chemistry turned out right so far. And there's absolutely nothing to complain about. Now, the caveat here, again, is, yes, he started some games, but he's still only averaging 17 minutes a game. Yeah. He's picking up a lot of fouls. He's not ready to start 82 games yet, especially for a really good team. But he's taken steps forward, which is a lot more than some of the recent rookies on this team can say.
We're talking with Dave Deckard, BlazersEdge.com here on the Rip City Drive. The other player I've really enjoyed watching, and I like his makeup, Denny Avdia is kind of coming into his own, Dave, over the last couple of weeks, settling into that bench role. He's a much more physical player than I thought they were getting when he came over from Washington, but he's starting to, showcase what he can do on both ends, and he's starting to make the three-point shot, too. What are your thoughts on what you're seeing with Denny?
Well, the last part is maybe the most important. That is, his three-point percentage is up near 35% now, which is a little below average, but nowhere near as bad as it was at the beginning of the season. And Denny's problem, if he has one, is taking it on the drive. I don't know if you noticed, but he gets stopped and or turns over the ball quite a bit when he tries to penetrate in the half court. So if you cannot penetrate in the half court and you cannot shoot the three-point shot, you can't be out there. He's solved half of that problem over the last couple of weeks, and that's enough to justify him being out there because his defense is superb. He can pass the ball. He spearheads the attack on the fast break, and he's, as the Blazer broadcasters keep pointing out, he's really quick. So he's almost a second point guard on the floor, which they desperately need because they don't really have a first one. So he's for this team just about everything that you could hope for out of that position. Now, you still hope his offense smooths out a little bit and the three-point percentage gets closer to 40% than 35%. If that happens, he will be special. But for right now, again, like Clingan, he's doing just about everything you could expect, and there's very little to complain about.
Hey, Dave, you mentioned point guard. You wrote a great piece a couple of weeks ago on the point guard issue for the Trailblazers. Can you expand on that a little bit? Because I think the listeners might enjoy it.
Sure. I mean, it looks like the Blazers have a lot, maybe 4 or 5 if you count Abdia, but they actually, in a way, have 0. Anthony Simons starts at point guard in theory, and he's a good scorer, but his shooting percentages are low, and he's not really comfortable passing the ball or setting up the offense. So he's kind of a half a point guard at best, and also his defense at the other end isn't really standing up to the rest of the teams, so you have problems there. But what are you going to do? Scoot Henderson's been injured, and even when he's in, he's probably better situationally. He's a lot better against an opponent's second unit than the first unit because what he wants to do is drive and get to the bucket and get fouled. He doesn't really convert still when he gets to the bucket. He does make some better passes than he did last year, but he's still turning the ball over at a similar rate, and you don't want that from your starting point guard to cough up possessions, so Scoot's not ready yet. You have Delano Banton, who's been a great scorer, and he's kind of exciting because of his 6'9" height, and he's generated some steals this year, which is promising, but he's third in the depth chart. He doesn't have the experience. He's probably the brightest hope going forward right now, it looks like, but he has a long way to go. And then you have Shaden Sharp, who occasionally brings the ball up, and Abdia, who occasionally does too, but neither one of them is a true point guard, and both of them have problems. So you got 5 guys who have taken turns bringing the ball up. None of them are really setting up the offense right. The Blazers could really use to thin that herd a little bit, maybe trade away a couple of those players, get themselves a serviceable true point guard, either to start in the interim while the other guys like Banton grow up, or to provide a steady reserve when the starting point guard isn't playing well. Either one of those would work, but the Blazers don't have that guy right now.
Hey, Dave, with Shaden Sharp, he's shown some flashes this year. What's the next most important step for Shaden in your mind to be able to elevate his game?
There are a couple, and the biggest one is the same one Abdia had, which is the three-point shot. He's only shooting 28% from distance. That won't cut it, especially since he ends up being an outlet for the Blazers, the same way Jeremy Grant is. When you're at the end of a possession and you've got to get a shot, Shaden Sharp can get the separation to do it. But the problem is if he's not connecting, it doesn't matter, and he's not connecting enough. He needs enough of a three-point shot to be able to step back and hit one to make the defender play up on him to guard against that. If that happens, then he can use his athleticism to get his shoulder past the defender on the drive, and then he can absolutely prosper either pulling up or finishing at the rim. But he can't do either of those interior things right now because his three-point shot isn't good enough.
We're Dave Decker, BlazersEdge.com here on the Rip City Drive. We're roughly, 4 days away from the official start of the NBA trade season. I mean, what are some things you're going to be watching over the next couple of months leading up to the February trade deadline for the Trailblazers?
Sure. We'll say the same thing we did at the beginning of the season. The Blazers have permission and ability to make any trade they want. I mean, they're 8-16. They're shooting for ping pong balls here. They're not going to lose anything by trading away any player they don't see a future for. It's absolutely fine. But the Blazers are not forced to make any deals. They don't have any major expiring contracts. They also don't have any players that they absolutely have to get rid of by February. They can wait till next summer or next September. So what I want to see is what the opposing offers will be. Is there a playoff team out there that will value a Jeremy Grant or an Anthony Simons enough to make a lucrative deal for them, either in current younger players or in future assets? If so, I would expect the Blazers to consider biting on something like that. Because you know what? Grant's contract runs for a while, but Simons only runs for the next 2 seasons. He'll be an expiring contract next year, and if they don't envision him as a starting guard in their future, then they should be ready to trade him. So you're looking to see what kind of offers they get rather than how they're looking to change their team right now.
Do you think there's any hesitancy in dealing Ant based on the slow development of Scoot?
I would not say so because Ant is not going to solve that problem, right? He's really a shooting guard, and he looks out of place playing point guard. So I don't think Simons is your substitute, especially not long term, which is what you're forecasting for either of them. If you keep Anthony Simons, you got to forecast extending him or re-signing him to a long-term contract. You're not going to do that as a point guard, right? It's the same thing with Scoot. You're looking at 3 or 4 years down the road. If you think he can play point guard, you don't need Ant. And if you don't, maybe you trade both of them, but they're not interchangeable for each other.
You know, I saw this piece today, kind of a bigger issue for the NBA. You know, ratings for the NBA Cup down 10% year over year. Ratings are down year over year, and we've seen some of the lowest rated finals in each of the last 4 years. So I was trying to think, like, you know, I've been watching the NBA for a long time, like you, Dave, and I think one issue I have right now is that I've had star players that I love to follow and that I felt attached to when I was younger, like Larry Bird and Isaiah Thomas and Michael Jordan and Kobe Bryant. And now with Dame out of town, I don't have that connection to a star player that I feel like I have to watch each and every night. Like, that's an issue for me. I know some people maybe don't like the three-point shots that are being put up. For you as a fan and someone that watches basketball, do you have anything like that? Is there anything about today's game that you don't like as much as you did or anything like that for you?
Well, I think the star thing is team specific to the Blazers right now because the league is geared to give a star to every team. That's basically what the lax offensive rules or draconian defensive rules are about, right?
Yeah, that's
You
true.
can't guard guys. So your team's always going to have a 20-point scorer unless you're the Trailblazers where everybody scores between 14 and 17, right? So that one doesn't bother me as much. I think load management has gotten a lot of press in recent years. I think they're trying to address that. But when you've got people like, I don't know, Kawhi Leonard is an obvious one, but there are others who are just not going to play every night or are load managing against the Blazers because the Blazers don't play well, that hurts too, right? So we're getting a double dose of that. I agree that the three-point shot might be a problem simply because, look, when you used to have your primary star out, you had secondary stars who could do something. Think of the Clyde Drexler Trailblazers. Okay,
Yes.
So Clyde's out for the night. That's a huge bummer. But Jerome Kersey is pretty exciting. Terry Porter can play. Even Kevin Duckworth and Buck Williams. And granted, that was a deep team, but they all did something different that mattered. And it was exciting watching them play. Now what do your secondary players do who aren't the stars? They shoot three-pointers. This is what you do. You defend and you shoot threes to spread the floor for the star. So when the star is out, all you're doing is shooting threes. And that's become endemic. And I think that that's ultimately not that pleasing of a game to watch over the long haul. I would say this, though. Be careful with the NBA Cup ratings. They need to stabilize. The first one was last year. Of course, there's going to be extra interest. Of course, it's going to fall in the second year. I think there's potential, though, for long term for them to play this up a little more and get those ratings back up where they were. It's just going to take some time.
Yeah, that makes sense. Dave Decker, BlazersEdge.com, is here on the show. Great points. You know, this is amazing to me, but, you know, Blazers Edge Night is our favorite night of the year, and I love what Blazers Edge does to help underprivileged youth go to basketball games. But this year, Dave, March 25th, I don't know how you did it, but you get the Cleveland Cavaliers, who currently have the best record in the Eastern Conference. That's quite the night for these kids who will see their very first NBA game.
Yeah, they get to see one of the contenders. So this is really special. We send this year it'll be well over 1,000 kids
Awesome.
from the local area who would never be able to see a game either because financially it's impossible or just the support network isn't there, that they don't have transportation or they don't have the adult presence that's free in the evening to take them all the way to Moda Center. So what happens is their teachers or their counselors or principals write in and say, we serve a lot of underserved kids who would never be able to go. Can you send us? And they expect like maybe 5 or 10, but we send entire classrooms. We'll send 20, we'll send 40, and we'll say, take them all. And here's the tickets. They're absolutely free. We leave them at will call. You pick them up. You go in, you see a game. All you have to do is get the kids there. And those adults in their community can usually manage that when they come based on the school or the sports team or whatever. So it ends up being a great night. And you get to watch kids come in the arena for the first time and see the scoreboard and the floor and the logo and the players. And their eyes are wide and they're cheering like it's the NBA Finals because this is their moment. And it's really an irreplaceable experience that way. Also, one of the ways we pass on the fandom that most of us take for granted. The way this works, though, I can't afford to buy, 1,200, 1,300 tickets myself. What we actually do is we sell them through the site. The Trailblazers hold the tickets. They set up a special link. You buy them directly from the Trailblazers, just as if you were buying your own. But when you buy them through this link, instead of going into your account, they go into the charity event account, and we distribute them. And you can do that just as easily as going to blazersedge.com. It's the very first, very biggest post on the site right now today. Click on that. You'll find a link at the bottom. Click through it. You buy from the Blazers with your credit card or whatever, and 1 or 2 or 10 or 100, however many tickets you buy, that many kids are going to the game. It's very grassroots. There's no overhead on our part. We take none of it. We have no financial stake in it. Again, you're buying directly from the team, and the team is setting aside tickets for these kids to go.
And it's right there on the front page. I'm looking at it right now. How to pay back Blazers Edge today. If you click on that, the story with the link to be able to buy the tickets. And I'm telling you, you don't have to see it. Just imagine a young child. Think back to your first time going to an NBA game and how awesome it was when you walked into the bowl of the arena and how your eyes widened. That's the same thing for these young kids. It's the best. And Dave Deckard is the man behind it. Dave, thanks for coming on to talk ball, man. I always love catching up with you, my friend.
Absolutely. I mean, it'll be interesting to see if they make a trade, and then it'll be interesting to see how the team settles out after the spring. Trailblazers may look and play a bit differently than the fall Trailblazers, so that'll be an exciting part of the season, too.
All right, buddy. We'll catch up soon. I appreciate your time.
Absolutely, Chad. Thank you so much.
There you go. Dave Deckard, blazersedge.com. That is a high-quality human being right there. Thank you, Dave. Thank you, Davey Dave. Boy, this Bill Belichick thing is blowing up on social media. The ACC now has 6 Super Bowl trophies to their name. The SEC has none.
I love it.
They lead that department 6-0. How's the hoodie going to do?
I'd like to know how long before Belichick, before the picture is taken somewhere, Belichick chatting up with MJ. Because you know MJ is still connected to Chapel Hill. I know it's basketball, but that money, it's going to be across the whole university, man. It's like you'd see a diner, Belichick and MJ sitting down. That'd be awesome.
2 legends.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. That'd break the internet. That'd be fun.
And they both have 6 rings.
Oh, well done, my friend.
Oh, that's good. Yeah, it's going to be great. Bill Belichick. I want Tom Brady to become a head coach in the ACC now so he can compete against the hoodie. That'd be great.
If Bill Belichick had the broadcasting contract that Tom Brady did, Chad, I don't think Bill Belichick would be going back to college football. So
I have a feeling that Bill Belichick is doing just fine in the money department. He's not going back because he needs the money. But what did Brady sign for? That Fox deal's like $300 million?
$350, I think. Just stupid monopoly money, folks.
Not as stupid as the newest New York Met. $51 million per year for 15 years. For Juan Soto.
That's so much money. I mean,
$51 a year for 15 years.
I saw no deferred money, so we can't even make fun of him in like 30 years like Bobby Bonilla either. It's like, no, he's just going to get it all in 15 years.
Bobby Bonilla Day is a special day.
It is.
All right. We'll keep things rolling. I love talking to Dave. Dave Deckard he's a good dude. Smart. Very smart. But this Blazers Edge night is one of the best. And this is the best game in all the years I've been covering the team. Getting the Cleveland Cavs for Blazers Edge night is a big-time bonus. And the Cavs are legit right now. They're not going to win the East. That's Boston. But right now they got the best record in the East, playing good basketball. And I like their roster, too. They got some cool dudes. All right, we'll keep things rolling. Rip City Drive. Big thanks to Dave Deckard, Chris Burkhart for stopping by. Tomorrow, Sean Hyken going to join me in studio. And we'll be able to have some fun together. So that's coming up tomorrow. Trailblazers insider Sean Hyken hanging out with me in studio here on the Rip City Drive. All right, Brendan, do you have any word on the Oregon State Beavers with the portal? How many players are leaving? How many players are looking at? You got any news on that? What's up with the Beavs?
Yeah. So it's actually been, I mean, compared to last year, Chad, it's been a very quiet couple of days. They've had a couple guys enter the portal to leave. One of their offensive linemen back up this year, a defensive back, Giovanni McCoy, starting quarterback this year. But for the most part, they've avoided some of the big, departures, especially at like so many positions like we saw a year ago. And now all eyes are on quarterback, right? And from what I've heard, it's looking like Ben Gulbranson will be moving on to the next stage of his football or of his life career, I should say. So Oregon State's got some holes at quarterback, and I think that's going to be the position to watch in the coming days and see how much NIL they can secure for it and all those things. But so far, I think it's been a pretty solid first couple days.
So not a massacre like we saw last year.
No,
much more stability. The one thing I can say is Tracy Normoyle, who works here in the iHeart office here in Portland, her son committed to Oregon State, recruited by multiple schools. She had nothing but great things to say about the whole process with Oregon State and the coaching staff and the recruiting process. And of course, her son wanted to, be a Beav and play down there, but she was impressed by just the overall family type atmosphere, how approachable they were, their willingness to engage in conversation, answer questions, their honesty, their openness about everything. So it's good to hear. Obviously Oregon State is not competing at the same level as the majority of schools who have big NIL dollars, but it's nice to hear that, the coaching staff does a heck of a job in dealing with the kids and the family.
For sure. And again, I've heard some great things on Jake too. And he's kind of my pick as one of the guys who I think could contribute earlier than later. I mean, I believe he's already over 300 pounds, just great size for an offensive lineman coming in. So very excited about what he's going to bring. But Chad, I believe I mentioned to you in one of our journeys in the last week or so was Oregon State should probably, pool a good bit of their NIL resources towards a quarterback and then kind of figure everything else out later. For those Beaver fans who are listening, and you can find out some more details at beaversedge.com, we're hearing some chatter that there are going to be some boosters that are going to put together a competitive NIL package for a quarterback this year. So we'll see how that all ultimately plays out, but I'm hearing there's some good stuff in the works right now.
Do you have a quarterback in mind who's available that you wouldn't mind them pursuing?
Yeah, there's a couple options. Not sure if they're connected to any of these options yet, but just guys intriguing. I think your pie in the sky, Cal's quarterback, Fernando Mendoza, entered the transfer portal today. Probably a little out of their price range, considering he was third in the ACC in passing from Miami. I hear Miami's interested with Cam Ward gone. But heard there would be some interest there. There's a quarterback out of UCLA that Ryan Gunderson recruited with Chip Kelly when he was there. Justin Martin is another guy to keep an eye on name-wise. And, for now, it's just kind of the tire-kicking stage, Chad. But to hear that you can go into those conversations and actually have what we believe is going to be a semi-competitive nil package that's the name of the game nowadays.
Do you know what the highest dollar amount is for a Beaver NIL package? What type of money are we talking?
For this specific one or one in the past?
One in the past.
Yeah, I'll say Giovanni McCoy was one that we knew was a couple $100,000 in a nil package.
Well, that's pretty damn good.
It was. So that was, again, sources, rumors, but I feel pretty confident in saying that he had a pretty nice nil package. And if I were to go back, I think DJU had probably the nicest one we've seen in the last couple of years.
Probably the biggest, right?
Yeah, but when I hear what they're considering throwing out this cycle, they might be able to get back to that. So, but again, credit to Chad. I've just heard this has been a couple of the big boosters at Oregon State who have come together and said, you pay for half, I'll pay for half, kind of a thing. And, that's the name of the game. You have to have boosters who are willing to open their wallets if you're going to compete in today's college football. So that's great for Oregon State. Love to see
especially for the quarterback position, right? I mean, now with NIL, it's no different than the NFL in terms of positions of value, right? Offensive line, premium position. Quarterback, obviously a premium position. It's going to be critical. And then when you get these guys who go to schools that have decent packages, when they play extremely well, other schools are going to try and tempt them, right? Like Sam Levitt at Arizona State. I don't think he's going to go anywhere because he's got a great connection with Dillingham, and I think Levitt's committed to there. But when you have a guy like Levitt with a Levitt-type season turning heads, that's where other schools will look to poach.
And you can't. Yeah, as a fan of a team, it's hard to not, take it personally. Like, I think about, like, if you're a Washington State fan, right? And you made John Mateer look really, really good this year. And John Mateer's was like, hey, thanks, guys. I'll see you later. So
Same thing as Cam Ward.
exactly. So, and Oregon State, Damian Martinez a year ago was like, yeah, I'm all in with Trent Bray. Spring comes around and, some agents making some moves. So, I think sometimes, Chad, for lack of better terms, there's some people who are like, yeah, I'm loyal. Then they get shown the briefcase of cash in the parking lot.
Well, I can understand a guy like Mateer. Like, I don't know if he's going to be an NFL quarterback.
Right.
So maybe this is just a good opportunity for him to, capitalize on his college career and cash in on NIL before he's done, because he may not be an NFL guy. Cam Ward, on the other hand, is destined for the NFL. He'll be drafted for sure. He might. I still think Shedeur Sanders is by far the number one quarterback taken, but Cam Ward's putting himself in a position where he might be the second quarterback off the board. Who would have thought that before the year began? That Cam Ward would be the second quarterback taken in the draft?
Yeah, no, not me. Not me.
I think most people thought it would be Shedeur and Carson Beck. But now,
even Quinn Ewers before the season, like you guys were you and Burkhart were talking about how he's made some kind of ding-dong decisions this year, and not to say that he hadn't previously, but coming into the year, it was like, hey, Texas is going to make some moves, right? Quinn Ewers is upperclassman now. He's seen some things, and, that didn't quite work out that way.
No, I just think the problem with Ewers is he's just not an explosive player. There's nothing that pops in regards to he's not a real – he can move a little bit, but he's not a good explosive athlete in terms of movement and being able to run. Average quarterback arm strength. Like, you just don't see the dynamic plays like you get from a Shedeur or a Cam Ward. He's just not that type of player. Heck, Dylan Gabriel, I don't know what type of NFL guy Dylan Gabriel is going to be, but Gabriel, you can see the athleticism and the dynamic plays he's making for Oregon right now. He's impressive. All right, that's going to do it for us. Big thanks to Brendan Slaughter, Dave Deckard, and, of course, Chris Burkhart for stopping by. Tomorrow, Rip City Drive at 3. Sean Hyken will join me in studio. Enjoy your evening. I appreciate your time, and have a good night. We'll talk to you tomorrow.